Welcome to Save As Ability, a podcast to educate and inform you about disability employment issues. My name is David Darkangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's David Darkangelo, another episode of Save As Ability. As we indicated in the last episode, this is a little bit of a two-parter, okay? The first episode, both episodes, really, what we're doing is we're kind of honoring the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which, again, loyal viewers will recognize that we film usually or record this episodes a little bit ahead of time. I think we're about a week before the ADA anniversary. So the last episode was about reasonable accommodation and like the undue hardship piece that like employers often claim. And then this one is going to be about like more general, like the ADA and Title I and how it prohibits discrimination of people with disabilities in employment. Okay. So we'll get right into it. So again, before the ADA, let's just go back one click. Before the Americans with Disabilities Act, there was the Rehabilitation Act, okay? And particularly Section 501 of the Rehabilitation Act, which indicated that employers were not allowed to discriminate against employees or prospective employees because of their disabilities, okay? And then the ADA went even further and provided additional clarity. And then after that, even the ADAAA, the Amendments Act, went even further than that and then really helped even clarify even further. That was about 10 years later, right? So here we are now. So Title I of the Americans with Disabilities Act is employment, right? Employment is so important to helping individuals with disabilities obtain independence and self-determination, access to opportunities that, they decided to make it the first title because it's that important, right? So the Americans with Disabilities Act is clear. It strictly prohibits employers from discriminating against qualified individuals with disabilities at any point in the employment process. Now, let's just break that down a little bit before we go further. Qualified individuals with disabilities, oftentimes people who don't really have a good understanding of the ADA or disability law, or people with disabilities for that matter, are like, oh, those people with disabilities are always getting special consideration. Well, hold on. Yeah, okay. Reasonable accommodations put in place, the interactive process put in place, all good things. But the reality is that the ADA is a merit-based law. It's very clear in the ADA that you as an employee, you've got to be able to do the essential job duties, the essential functions of the job. Okay? That's a good thing. That's a good thing both for the employee and for the employer. And that's one of the really hallmarks that makes the ADA so important, so valuable, so legitimate, quite frankly, because this isn't a handout. This is a hand up. This is just saying, let's be fair, because we have certain considerations for people with disabilities that they need to be at parity of those of employees without disabilities. I think you line up all Americans. If you were to take a poll, I think 99% of people would probably agree with that, yeah, give people what they need to be successful and be fair, right? That's all we want here is parity. So I think that's a really good thing, just to pause on that. All right. So again, we go back to the employment process. The employment process, yeah, it's once you get the job, but it also includes the recruitment, the hiring, the firing, the promotions, the job assignments, the pay, the benefits, like all of those other aspects that go into the employment situations, all the terms, all the conditions, all of the rights and privileges that come with your paycheck and employment and all that, okay? So yeah, it's about the job, it's about your work, but it's also about all of those other dynamics involved, okay? And there are particular sections and, there's been legal decisions on every aspect of all the stuff I've just mentioned, all right? But it's important that there is law, that there is due process, both for the individual with a disability, the employee, and the employer and the business community as well. That's one of the things to me that is so valuable and important about the ADA is it's not just one side or the other, it's both. And that's when you get good public policy is when everybody's satisfied, right? Everybody has a seat at the table. So a couple of other points here. Unlawful discrimination also extends to actions based on the applicant or employee's record of a disability, perceived disability, or association of a person with a disability. All right. Now, this is kind of going back to like the three-pronged definition of disability that we talk about, right? A physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, have a record of an impairment, or being regarded as having that impairment. Okay. So remember, the ADA has 5 titles, one being employment. Okay. So that's why I think it's important to recognize that we're inclusive of all people with disabilities. The ADA definition of disability, remember, is like intentionally broad. It's not trying to screen people out. It's trying to ensure that we're not discriminating against people with disabilities. Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about employment policies and making sure that good employment policies are in place so that discrimination doesn't occur. All right. So employment policies or practices that can violate the ADA include things like you can talk about disparate impact. You could talk about, inconsistent policy application. You can talk about undue qualification standards, tests, quotas, selection criteria, screening in or out, and things like that. All of these things over the 35 years of the ADA have been tested, have been ruled on by the EEOC and courts. And, some of these things have gone to the Supreme Court and certainly other courts as well. So we now have a lot of data on what you can and cannot do. Anyway, we're not here to go through every single one of those. What we are here to do is say, if you're an employee or prospective employee, know that there's resources out there for you to look at to understand your rights and what you have to do, your obligations as an employee. And further, on the employer side, that there's information out there that you need to be cognizant of to make sure you're being inclusive of people with disabilities in all your processes. And you're going by all of these things that have been developed, whether it's the law, whether it's the regulations, whether it's the policies, whether it's your own internal practices. All right. So there's EEOC guidance on this. There's Ask Jan. There's EarnWorks. There's so much information out there that you can empower yourself with that, quite frankly, is free. And you can really make sure both sides are meeting their obligations here. All right, we touched upon this. The whole last episode was about this, but let's just touch upon it here. Reasonable accommodations, and just reinforce once again that is required at every stage, including hiring. All right, and you've got to engage in the interactive process. Go back. I think we're on our 90th episode or whatever this is, 89th episode, whatever this is. We've had whole episodes on these things, these topics. So make sure you're following the process. There is a very deliberative process out there and ways to be considerate here and, talk about it. If you have questions, call us, call me, send me a message. We'll answer it there for you. But really, it's the brilliant part of the thing we're doing here is celebrating the brilliance of the ADA and what it's evolved into. Is it perfect? No. Do we still have challenges in hiring people with disabilities? Unfortunately, we do, as the data indicates. But think if this wasn't in place. Think of how many more people would have been discriminated against and how even lower the participation would be. So, again, federal law is in place to protect not only individuals with disabilities, but employers and workers and workforces with people with disabilities in them as well. Employment decisions based on bad things that we don't like stereotypes, misconceptions, all of those things are able to be overcome by the guidance that is in the ADA, is in the EEOC, and is in all this stuff. All right. So it's out there. This isn't optional. This is federal civil rights law. Okay. And then, so as we wrap up here, just want to make sure that everybody who's listening, whether you're employee, employer, be proactive. Okay. If you think there's a challenge or if you think something's going to go on, talk about it, engage in the interactive process, ask for reasonable accommodations. And if you're an employer, try to provide the reasonable accommodations to the best of your ability, engaging in that interactive process. It's going to help the employee. It's going to help you as an employer. And that's a win-win. And it's a win-win-win when done well, because then it ends up helping society, and America is stronger when everybody gets to participate. So the ADA, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best laws ever passed, a bipartisan law. And I think we're getting back to that. People tend to be like, oh, we're so polarized now. I think most of that is starting to be behind us. And I honestly think that we're going into a new era here of enhanced cooperation, because the data is clear. When you employ people with disabilities, it helps the person with the disability. It helps the business. It's a win-win. All right. How many more times do we got to say it? But the ADA at 35, happy birthday, ADA. It's David D'Arcangelo. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Please help continue to grow our channel. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I hope you have a great day.
For more information about disability employment issues, please visit our website, disabilityemploymentsolutions.com. The Save As Ability podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel at Disability Policy Expert, or wherever you stream your podcasts. Subscribe, stream, rate, and review our shows. Your ratings and reviews help our show reach new audiences. Produced by Pod Pro Entertainment. Save As Ability lives within a network of podcasts located at podproentertainment.com. #TheNewRadio. Again, my name is David D'Arcangelo, and I'm your disability policy expert. Until next time, thank you. I hope you have a great day.